Alrighty, so Luke chapter 6:45, Jesus says, a good person produces good out of the good stored up in his heart. An evil person produces evil out of the evil stored up in his heart. For his mouth speaks from the overflow of the heart. We've read that before. And Jesus is saying here that the things we do, the things we say, are just an overflow of what's on the inside. I mean that's not revolutionary. We get that, but that tells you the importance of the inside. That's what's dictating the outside things that we do. The clothing we wear is an expression of what's going on in our inner selves. I don't know what my shirt choices say about me. Usually I think, this will be funny, but there's probably something deeper than that. It's amazing the conversations I get in over my shirt, so then I just kept getting wilder. I go to the store and check out people are like, hey, I love that shirt or hate that shirt, whatever. And they never say they hate it, but anyway, it's an expression of something that's going on. I love talking. I love conversing with people. I'm also not the, I mentioned, was that last week or some context, I'm not the small talk guy, but that creates small talk. It's like, oh yeah, they're checks or whatever, triangles, whatever. So anyway, that's what it is. The words we speak come from our hearts. So when we say something in anger and think, oh man, I shouldn't have said that, usually because it's been in the heart, we were just like holding it back, and then in that moment of, it comes out, and it's what's in our heart. And you can go right down the line with the exterior things, the cars we drive, the houses we buy, the food we prefer, the people we hang out with, the way we spend our money. Those are all outward signs of what is going on in the heart. We talked last week that the whole point of that is to transform us, to transform our inside. I'm going to learn what God's word, what his message, his truth is for us to live by. And as we learn it and becomes part of us, it begins to transform the outside. That's really what we're talking about here with simplicity. And it's written in bold words in your notebook, but it's the big thing here. It's an inward reality resulting in an outward lifestyle. The chaos, if we live in chaos, is because something on the inside is chaotic, and there's some settling down that could occur. And everything we do is an expression of our inside person. One person said, simplicity is a limiting of your possessions, purchases, and personal calendar to a place where you can experience more of God's love and joy in Christ.
That doesn't apply to tools.
To tools? Does that apply to tools? I have to read that again. You use tools in your work. And I'm sure you get extra little fun tools too. It does. It's what's inside, though. You're a tool guy. You're a fix-it guy. You're always gadgeting, creating things. Yeah, you're a real tool. This is the guy who shows up one day with a portable baptism that he made when we were meeting in schools. That is an expression of what's going on inside. But the idea is growing to the point where you embrace a lifestyle of gratitude and contentment, where you experience more joy and peace by giving than you do by adding. We get on the hunt to add. I want more, whether it's schedule, whether it's stuff, whatever it is, we want more. And this is reversing that trend and just finding joy and peace and contentment and gratitude just in Jesus, right? That it's a real humbling thing to kind of start looking at this. Dallas Willard, in his book, The Spirit of the Disciplines, Understanding How God Changes Lives, says, there can be no doubt that we often fail to give of our goods when we should. So you have an opportunity to be generous with someone and we're like, no, we have all kinds of reasons not to, right? There's no justification for that. Just as there is none for living wastefully or in frivolous consumption and luxury. Frugality is both a discipline and a primary Christian virtue. But it must be noted that such failures concern the use of goods. So when we fail to help someone or give of things, it's talking about the use of goods, not their possession. Poverty and wealth, on the other hand, have to do with possessions of things. Some people have more, some people have less, right? Condemnation and guilt over the mere possession has no part in scriptural faith and is, in the end, only a barrier to the right use of riches on earth. So as we walk through this tonight, it's just important to understand this has nothing to do with what you possess. If you have a bigger pile or a smaller pile or a medium pile or whatever it is you possess, whatever you own, it really isn't about that. That's wealth and poverty. If you have a lot, the point of simplicity is not to make you feel guilty. If you have a little, it's not to make you feel self-righteous. Well, see, I have little, God must love me more. I mean, we play mind games with ourselves sometimes with this thing. Simplicity is about finding balance in your life wherever you're at, whatever you have. Okay? Trust is at the heart of the inward reality of simplicity. And it's really trust in God. Do I trust God to take care of me? What if I gave everything? What if I'm a widow at the temple and I put everything in? Do I trust I'll have a meal tomorrow? Do I trust God with that? If I view my possessions as a gift from God, if I view my possessions as something that's not mine to hold on to, I'm a steward. It's not like I'm gathering, mine. If my possessions can be available to others when it's clearly right and good, Richard Foster says, then I'm living in the inward life of simplicity. But if my possessions belong to me, everything's it's my stuff, and this, I mean, I think we all struggle. I mean, I do. Maybe it's a me thing. We struggle. This is mine. I want to protect this, right? If I refuse to let go of things when it's clearly right and good to do so, then I am living out of balance with the inner reality of simplicity. And I think this is probably where we battle all the time. This might be my biggest battle of the disciplines is simplicity, because I'm always wanting to take or grab hold, or like I worked hard for this, or I planned hard for this, or whatever. And God's like, but I have this kingdom, and how you're my hands and feet, and this person's hungry. I come up with all kinds of excuses. His book, Freedom of Simplicity, Richard Foster identifies a number of selves, right? There's the timid self, the courageous self, the business self, the parental self, the religious self, literary self, energetic self. These aren't like, there's all these voices in our head that come from within, right? And he says that these voices are all rugged individualists, but no compromise. They're all get angry if you do something out of their realm. They're like, what are you doing? And they start screaming to do something different. They want to protect their vested interests. The timid self wants to sit back and kind of hang out of, I just want to hide in the shadows. I have a timid self that yells at, come on, just go hide, and that's that. The business self, maybe they want to be productive. It's like, what are you doing? You got to get moving. You don't have time to be out in the shadows. You got to get out and do stuff. And the parental self, of course, is concerned about the kids, and religious self concerned about your faith. Energetic self, you just want to keep moving. You're going to keep the energizer running around. What am I doing sitting here? I got to get up. I got to go. So he writes, if a decision is made to spend an evening relaxing, maybe you can identify with this, decision is made to spend an evening relaxing, listening to music, the business self rises up and protests at the loss of precious time. What are you doing? You don't have time for this. The energetic self paces back and forth, impatient. Can we get this song over with, or whatever? There's time. We got stuff to do. And so that voice inside your head's like, come on. The religious self reminds us, man, there was a lost opportunity. I could be studying. I should be reading my Bible. I could be talking to my neighbor about Jesus. That voice comes in. And he says, no wonder we feel distracted and torn. No wonder we overcommit our schedules and live lives of frantic faithfulness. This is all quote from his book. But when we experience life at the center, the inward reality, Jesus in the center, life in the center, all is changed. Our many selves come under the unifying control of the divine arbitrator, God. No longer are we forced to live by inner majority rule, which voice is screaming the loudest, right? Which always leaves a disgruntled minority. that little guilty twinge, you know. The divine yes or no settles all minority reports. Everything becomes oriented to this new center of reference. The quiet evening can be enjoyed to the fullest because our many selves have been stilled by the holy within. The Holy Spirit's just taken over. Just, you know what? It's rest time, or it's work time, or it's whatever time. You other voices, just calm it down. You back off. So there's no need to wave the flag of self-interest, the voice, since all things good and needful will be given their proper attention at the appropriate time. We enter into a refreshing balance and equilibrium of life. You may relate to that? No? Some of you are like, yeah. Man. You decide to do something, and then one or two of those voices, you know, battle within, and they're good voices. You're planning to go to Africa to preach a revival, and you're thinking, what about the homeless in your own town? You're out helping the homeless in your own town. You're like, well, what about the world missions? What are you doing about that? You spend time relaxing at home, and you're thinking, well, there's so much to do. Get up, you lazy bum. There's always the voice, always a voice. Whatever you're doing, there's always something else you could or should be doing. I try to take one day off a week, and I'm not all that good at it because often the voices are telling, I got this to do and I got that to do, and I have all those things. My calendar's full. They're all worthy things, and maybe that simplicity in my calendar would be helpful. One of my goals is to hang out with Brody on my day off, and I was doing it for a while, and then I stopped doing it. I got busy, and I looked at my calendar. I got this meeting, and that. I got that. I set up that, and it's all stuff I set up. It's not like no one's forced me to like not do that. And sermon to prepare, but like it or not, Sunday's coming. I mean, it comes every week. It's always coming. So that's always in the back of the mind. Now there's a class to throw in. Like, how am I going to do the 4th of July? That's what we were talking about ahead of time. It's like, back off and say, we're not. We're not. Take a breath. Really fit in well to the to what we're talking about. We got a men's group on Saturday. Have I even read the thing? And so anyway, I went several weeks without watching him, and then I don't remember what it was, a podcast or something, YouTube video, something. I listened to some, I don't even remember who it was or what they were talking about, but I do remember them talking about Gandhi, a pretty busy guy, world changer, who somehow figured out a way to meet once a week with his grandson. And I was like, and so I was telling them, Danielle, okay, guys, I really got to do this. And then she texted me tonight, and I'm like, I could have easily said no, and I looked at my calendar, there's literally nothing on there because I try to keep them away from Thursdays. It's supposed to be my day off. And so right now, that's the plan. No, that is the plan. see? One of those voices popped up. Give it a now. Give it a now. Yeah.
You get a day off.
What? What is that? Who said you could do that?
I heard it described as tyranny of the urgents.
Yeah, that's a book, isn't it? Or
Yeah, from a book.
it's in the because I happened halfway reading it and I got busy and quit. It's on my iPad thing, Kindle. It's really good.
What's the name of it again?
Tyranny of, I can give you the actual, you heard the tyranny of the busy.
Of the urgent.
Of the urgent. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah.
What you have to do right now, but there's other stuff you should be doing this other.
Yeah. I listen. If there was a weakness in a kink in my armor, that's probably one for me for sure. The discipline of simplicity aims at the quieting those voices. Okay. To focus on the kingdom of God, let Him worry about the rest. He'll take. Everything's gonna be fine. Sometimes I'll remind myself, someday you're gonna get hit by an ice cream truck and everything's gonna be fine. They'll put you down under 6 foot, and the life's gonna go on, the world's gonna go on, and there'll be a couple tears and blah blah blah. Everything's gonna be. The church will be fine. The kingdom of God will be. I'll be dancing. Everybody's happy. And it's just like no, but we act like the whole world centers around us. And it just. doesn't. It just doesn't. It's just part of this just to relax. When you get the discipline of simplicity down inwardly, it'll have a profound impact on your life outwardly. So this is the one I'm really going to be focused on because I do the other things. I pray, I fast, all the things we've been talking about. I study. I have to because I got a sermon coming up every 7 days. So I'm always studying. But this one, I allow myself not to do. Natural, I love lists. I have lots of lists throughout the things. Natural outflow of a simplistic inner reality. When you've engaged in the simplicity and in the reality is when it's inward, the outward things that start happening, speech becomes truthful and honest. I mean, why do people lie? Well, they're trying to hide something. They're trying to make something sound different. I don't know why people lie. So when you don't have to, your speech becomes truthful, honest. Number 2, the desire for status and position is absent. We were talking about this in the men's group a few years ago. One of the books we were reading, that you get to a certain age, that kind of happens too. Like you get to a point like I have nothing to prove to anybody, honestly, either you like me or don't, whatever, but I don't have to try to impress anybody. So part of that's maturity, but that's part of it's a spiritual thing too. Number 3, we cease from showy extravagance. Not because I can't afford it, but because a principle, why would I? Why do I need to have sparklers everywhere I go, showing everybody here I am? Number 4, our possessions become available to others. I struggle with that sometimes. I want to be in control of that one. I think that's where I struggle. I mean, I think I'm generous. I do all kinds of stuff, but I want to do it on my terms. Maybe God has a different term. That's when I'll go, oh, but I had a plan for that. Number 5, we learn to live without masses of things. If I recall right, I think this came out of the Foster's book, this 5 things. So I don't have to have 20 of this and 40 of that. Sam's Club's probably not necessary, but it's so much fun. And anyways, that'll go down a different trail. Our contemporary culture, I think, lacks both the inner and the outward lifestyle of simplicity. Would you agree? I mean, we're not geared that way. We're just, we're not raised that way. We don't raise our kids that way. We don't. I remember when our kids were so young, and we'd go to grandma's, grandpa, whatever, house, but for Christmas, we were always saying, please, back her off. They already get everything they want, and now you're just giving all heaps more. And it was like, we're trying to make this not, the commercialized things it is. I mean, it is. Just we have fun with it, but we want to make this more about Jesus, and that was a struggle. And I'm sure, Danielle, like when you were young, you didn't complain. You're like, but more, because we're raised that way. We have had conversations, Cheryl and I, of we don't want to be that to our grandkids, but yet at the same time, I get it. I'm like, we're out and like, oh, look at this shirt. And Brody needs this shirt. And it's like, Mom and Dad can afford the shirt if they want it. But anyway, it's our wired. It's the way we're wired. We just want to do that. The masses of things. So as you learn this discipline, you're going to find yourself hedging back and forth. And I've done that. I'm not terrible. I'm making myself like I'm awful, but I'll go back and forth. I have strong times and periods and times of when I'm not so strong in simplicity, and you'll probably get that. You might take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and let me just that's what disciplines are. Kind of like your prayer life. Sometimes you're red hot, and sometimes you're like, oh man, I haven't prayed for 3 weeks, and how do I get that discipline down? So it's the same thing with this as well. Simplicity, I think this is a fill-in, begins with a basic understanding that our lust for affluence in our contemporary society is psychotic. I think that's kind of a cool sentence. I didn't write it, so I can say that. We crave things that we neither need nor enjoy. Right? We buy things we don't want in order to impress people we don't like. Did I kick that? Is that camera still on me? I think it still is. I start kicking my cord here. We're always trying to impress people who don't care. I mean, whether it's a conscious thing or a subconscious thing. When Cheryl and I were first married, Cheryl worked downtown at one of the insurance companies, and we were 21 and 19. We were young, and she's working there, and that was like the rat race, right? I mean, some of you are there, you know, and it was such a high pressure there to wear certain, clothing. This is 80s, so dress for success was big, too. So it's like you gotta have the right clothes, the right brand. Jewelry was a big deal. You gotta have the right, like you can't just have like the imitation stuff. You gotta have like the real. And everybody knew, and everybody was watching this stuff, and to have the right kind of car, all that thing. And it's difficult in that setting to not be sucked into that game because, well, the person over here they work with, she just got a new necklace, and then I'd hear the stories, and I'm the husband, I'm like, well, my wife's not going to be the bottom of the list, the little ego jumps in there, and so I go shopping and Christmas presents that I shouldn't be getting and stuff like that. So I remember back then, spending all kinds of money on clothes that we didn't need to, like buying spending all kinds of money on jewelry that really wasn't necessary. But it was part of that rat race thing, this fake social mountain that we were trying to climb or something. And then something funny happened. She worked there for a number of years, and then we moved to Atlantic, Iowa. Absolute opposite culture there. We go there and nobody wore anything name brand. There's people that we hung out with anyway, the people in our church and all the friends and stuff. Everybody had old beater cars and the clothes was like, you fix it, you don't buy new, and all. And I remember Cheryl, she was embarrassed to wear some of the jewelry she had because it was just like she's walking around like, hey, I'm the princess and all you poor people here, and we put a bunch of it away. We still haven't found some of it. We think it's in a box that we moved here, but it was just like it was awkward and uncomfortable. And it wasn't, it wasn't like anything you'd see on the, like on the movie. They go out and nothing like that. But it was. Remember that? It was yeah. They had a more.
You bought me both a necklace and a bracelet, and they did make you return the bracelet, so I wasn't that.
I'm saying I was the bad one. I mean, you were wonderful. Yeah, in her defense, you never came home and whined because you didn't have a nicer car. You might now, but you really don't have it. The Pontiac vibe is not... Anyway, side point. Yeah. I mean, it was all me thinking. I'd hear the stories and think, well, you're going to be better than her, and I'd make sure she had the stuff. This is the key to the internal side of simplicity. The mass media has convinced us that to be out of step with fashion or the latest technology or the coolest car or whatever is to be out of step with reality. Like, you aren't cool, you're not good enough, you're not like us. And it's this drive to make sure you're with everybody. And the fact of the matter is, in big bold letters there, conformity to a sick society is to be sick. That was a big lesson to learn. It took us a year or two probably in Atlantic when I thought, wait, I actually kind of like this better. There was no pressure. There was no, all the stuff. And so we kind of never really went back to that in that particular work environment type thing. At the school, you were just like, people were like, biting you on the arm, so you didn't wear any stuff there when you were first there working with kids. The office is different, but anyway, there is a countercultural trend to kind of buck this whole thing. The tiny house things. There's all kinds of shows on that kind of thing, and the decluttering shows. And what's the thing where what is some gal says you're supposed to ask a question or something like? Does it? Okay, I was trying to Google that. I'm like, I don't even know. I never watched that stuff. And then if it doesn't doesn't, and how many seconds you're supposed to get rid of it, or I don't know, it's something. Point being, like culture, there's a countercultural movement to kind of become more simplistic. Blogs, I did find a bunch of blogs on decluttering, and people are becoming minimalists, and that's cool and great. But here's the deal: if you're only working on the outward and not the inward, that's not the Christian spiritual discipline of simplicity, and that can lead to being a judgmental. I drive a Prius. What's wrong with you in the SUV? You know, I think I'll scratch your car. You know, I mean, stuff that you can get downright violence. So, some of when I was doing the federal court grand jury stuff, there were people like, trying to blow up oil pipelines, because they don't think anybody else should have that stuff. And I was like, well, you're being minimalistic. Cool, good for you, but don't make me do it. They're not. The inward's not there. There's not a spirit of Christ in that whole thing. In that whole lifestyle. So that's where we have to be careful. That's why we're going to work on the inside. But the Christian approach to this is the internal side. And you start with the inward understanding of simplicity, and you let that change you, transform you to the point where it starts changing your outer. So it's inside out. So, well, with that said, let's look at the Bible and simplicity. This is the transformative thing. We talked about study last week. Study the Word, looking at what it says. You get it, transforms the mind, transforms the actions. So here's just some side, or I have it categorized. All property and possessions belong to God. Leviticus 25, the land is not to be permanently sold because it's mine, God says. You're only aliens and temporary residents of my land. And that was part of Jewish law things, and it had some stuff, but its overall principle is true. I have a little piece of paper that says I own a house right down the road. Someday that's just going to go to somebody else. It's ultimately, it's God's. He is all His. Psalm 50, verse 10. Every animal of the forest is mine. The cattle on 1,000 hills. I know every bird of the mountains. The creatures of the field are mine. If I were hungry, well, I would not tell you, for the world and everything in it is mine. Everything. There's nothing out of the realm of what's physical that doesn't belong to God. So that's a base understanding in simplicity that it's not mine to worry about. I steward it. I want to be a good steward. But I don't have to have anxiety over stuff because it's not my stuff. Or getting stuff or whatever. I mean, all the climbing, I don't have to worry about it. When I understand that, literally everything belongs to Him. It'll revolutionize the way you view life. We bought a new set of pots and pans here recently. The last time we have never bought pots and pans because some of the pans we were getting rid of were wedding presents from 37 years ago. That either means we don't cook much or we take good care of them. I'm not sure what that means. Probably both. Anyway, so I was just going to throw them away. It's like, who wants 37-year-old pans, And then we go to that homeless camp the other day, and I see them cooking with pans they probably pulled out of a garbage or something, and they're legit using it for their pans. And I said, okay, so guess what we're going to do? We're going to put these in a box, the same box with the new ones, and I got a box down the hallway now that it's like, because they're God's pans, and I don't get to just throw them away. When someone legitimately really could use them, and so that's kind of the shift that goes on. That's never been on my radar. I mean, I don't know. They eat at like McDonald's all the time, right? People give them money all day long, right? And they I mean, I don't, it's like no. Sometimes they're anyway. That's kind of what we're talking about here. Understanding everything is God's relieves the pressure, the anxiety, and it said that. So let's go to the danger of worshiping wealth. If wealth increases, don't set your heart on it. Sometimes the more you have, the more you becomes you're like it's okay to think about it and plot and plan and have a solid thing, but if that's like all your heart is centered around, you need to check yourself and make sure you're worshiping God and not it. Anyone trusting in his riches will fall, but the righteous will flourish like foliage. I don't care who you are, it can come and go in a moment. A job could be lost, a stock market could fall, a retirement could be completely, Ponzi scheme guy can take everything you've ever done. I mean, it's like, that's just life. It's what it is. And so make sure your heart's in the right place. Jesus said in Matthew 6, no one can serve two masters, since either will hate one and love the other, be devoted to one, despise the other. You can't serve both God and money. It's not that you can't have both. You can't worship both. That can be the main thing. 1 Timothy 6, read this not long ago on Sunday morning. Those of you who want to be rich fall into temptation, a trap, many foolish and harmful desires which plunge people into ruin and destruction. The love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. By craving it, some have wandered away from the faith, pierced themselves with many griefs. Just keep it in check. Make sure you're worshiping God and not it. Hebrews 13, keep your life free from the love of money. Be satisfied with what you have, for he himself has said, I will never leave you or abandon you. Ephesians 5, for know and recognize this, every sexual, immoral, or impure, or greedy person. Greedy? What? Wait a minute. Let's talk about the sexually immoral people again. The greedy person, who is an idolater. What? Whoa, wait a minute. Does not have an inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and of God. Colossians 3:5, therefore put to death what belongs to your earthly nature, sexual immorality, impurity, lust, evil desire, greed, which is idolatry. Well, he said that twice now. I mean, like two different, whoa, I worship the dollar. It's a big check. As you can see, there's lots of scripture on this. 1 Timothy 6, instruct those who are rich in the present age not to be arrogant, to set their hope on the uncertainty of wealth, and then their hope shouldn't be there, but on God. What says it? Who richly provides us with all things to enjoy. Instruct them to do what is good, to be rich in good works, to be generous, willing to share, storing up treasure for themselves as a good foundation for the coming age, so that they may take hold of what is truly life. Luke 12, sell your possessions, give to the poor, make money bags for yourselves that won't grow old. This is Jesus talking. In an inexhaustible treasure in heaven where no thief comes near and no moth that destroys. Kingdom first, right? For where your treasure is, there your heart will be. And then the big one here, Luke 12, consider how the wildflowers grow. They don't labor or spin, thread. I tell you, not even Solomon in all his splendor was adorned like one of these. If that's how God clothes the grass, which is in the field today and thrown in the furnace tomorrow, how much more will he do for you, you of little faith? Don't strive for what you should eat and what you should drink, and don't be anxious, for the Gentile world eagerly seeks all these things, and your Father knows that you need them. But seek his kingdom, and these things will be provided for you. Don't be afraid, little flock, because your Father delights to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions, give to the poor, make money bags for yourselves that won't grow old, and an inexhaustible treasure in heaven. We read part of that. Where no thief comes near, no moth destroys, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. That's the discipline of simplicity right there. Being transformed to the point where your inner self, your heart of hearts, your inner passions, your desires, your goals are for the kingdom of God. And you let God worry about the other stuff. Doesn't that sound much more peaceful?
Yes.
I mean, yeah. God is better than anything the world has to offer. Psalm 63, there's probably plenty of verses, but this is the one I got. My lips will glorify you because your faithful love is better than life. What brings you happiness in life? I mean, what do you, and it's good. Don't I have to say something spiritual. Just, honestly. It's a discipline class. A good steak makes me happy, right? Grandson?
Being with friends.
Being with friends, yeah. It fills your heart.
I can say feeding the homeless.
No, now that's all spiritual. No, but that's true. That's true. Hey, I'll be honest. It's the second new vehicle we have. This truck, man. Every time I get in that thing, I'm just happy. I'm just like, man. This is terrible, but I love it. It's like, yeah. Anyway, there's all kinds of things that make us happy. A good. What?
A hot shower.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Hey, you come to Zimbabwe with us next year, and the shower never was more exciting in your life. Just
Well, the girl side, yes.
well, if there's heat. Yeah. How do you know? I think literally every time, now I have to say it out loud because there's a pattern. Every time I go to Hoo Hot, especially I'm with someone, I will say they're going to have this in heaven. This is going to be like, and then a little tear comes on my eye. It's not because I'm thinking of heaven, it's because I put just the right amount of spice in it. It's like, oh, enough burn. I'm like, yeah. And so now I think it. If no one's with me, this will be in heaven someday, and I'll be really disappointed. No, I won't. But those are great. Those are good. God's given us. He wants us to be happy. He gave us these things for our pleasure. I mean, they're all right. It's not bad to like or want, or it's not bad that I enjoy my truck when I jump in it. But every one of them are a distant second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, whatever, to God. You know, the moment my truck is higher than God, I hope He crashes it and it burns up in a flame. If you ever see it in the news, you'll be like, "Oh, Dan had an idol." You know, everything. I want it to burn. if that ever becomes that way now, because usually it's an appreciation.
Yes.
You know, it's just a thank. Wow, thanks God. This is like,
Yes.
yeah. So. Now, most of us, we read this Psalm 63, 3, and of course we shake our head, in agreement. Of course, how can you disagree with that? Of course, I mean, God's faithful love is better than all those things. But then in the reality where we tend to go is say, yeah, God's love is all I need, but I really want more. And this is the back and forth. This is where we take 2 steps and 1 step. But I really want more. Kind of reminds me. It made me think of the Chris Tomlin song, "All of You is More Than Enough." You know what I'm talking about? You know that song? All of you is more than enough for all of me, for every thirst, every need. You satisfy me with your love, and all I have in you is more than enough. I wonder if you took a class on simplicity. You're singing this, aren't you, John? You're like, what? You supply my breath of life. What's that?
It's been a long time.
It's been a long time. Still more. Wait, you supply all. You are my supply, my breath of life, and still more awesome than I know. You are my reward worth living for, and still more awesome than I know. You're my sacrifice of greatest price, and still more awesome than I know. You're my coming King, you're everything, and still more awesome than I know. More than all I want, more than all I need. You are more than enough for me, more than all you're more than enough. That's like the theme song of simplicity. If you're ever struggling with, do a little word Google search of Chris Tomlin, More Than Enough, and listen to that, and you'll be like, okay, all right. Okay, an unbalanced view of wealth can choke our spiritual life. In the parable of the sower, Jesus talks about a farmer. He throws seed that falls on 4 different types of soils. One of the soils has thorns infested with it, and so the plant grows up and it's looking good, but then the thorns start choking out the good plant that's growing. And later on, he explains to his disciples, like, what are you talking about? Soil and seed and all that stuff. In Matthew 13, 22, he says, now the one sown among the thorns, this is the one who hears the word, but the worries of this age, the deceitfulness of wealth, choke the word, and it becomes unfruitful. Yeah? How many have choked before on food? I mean, I think most of us probably have at some point. It's frightening, isn't it? On steak? Yeah. Who said that? It's frightening. I mean, because you have this moment of hopelessness, like you can't breathe. You're like, you can't talk. That's why, I remember in high school, we took the CPR thing. The first thing, at least back then, you said is, can you speak? And then you're like, are they really choking, or are they just like, whatever? I don't know if do you still do that? Yeah, you still say, can you speak? And so it cuts everything. I figured everything you're taking. Yeah, you can figure it out. If it isn't removed soon enough, you're not going to survive. And people don't. Those are sad, horrible stories. Same thing spiritually. It might not be as obvious. It's more of a slow choke, I think. Just slowly, stuff becomes more important than God. And just one little compromise, one little step at a time. And at some point, then you start getting worried about myself. What if somebody hits my truck? Yeah, and last night I left my truck out, and I thought, what if someone breaks the window and tries to take stuff? And it's like, well, then they break the window and take stuff. And I went back. I went to sleep. But I was thinking, it was in my mind. It was in my mind. What?
It's insured.
It is insured, but but I mean, and I think I have a pretty healthy balance on it. But what I'm saying is, you get stuff and you start thinking and worried about it. Every time a storm comes, oh no, the roof. I'm still insured, but it's a big pain and deductibles and all the stuff. So we're all susceptible to this. This is the person who wants to focus on the kingdom of God, who wants to follow Jesus with everything they've got, who wants to keep their eyes on Jesus at all times. But they have such a love affair with the things of this world, their spiritual life gets cut off and dies. We've probably all seen people that have gone through that without trying to be judgmental. I mean, that's probably, if you were to look at it, that's probably what happened. I've seen new converts get all excited, and all whatever, and like 3 years later, they've just disappeared because, well, I got things, I got stuff, and worldly things, and it's like, oh, okay, God loves you, but it's so heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking because you know it. You can't just do the Heimlich on them. We have to figure out a spiritual Heimlich for them. But it gets to a point where, like, I want to pursue wealth more than pursue spiritual growth. I want to power and prestige more than I want to submit. I don't want to submit. That's like, that's for losers. I want to be the power person. I want things more than I want to pause and pray. This is insatiable desire for more and more. All right. So finding balance. The Christian has to be careful not to jump to one end or the other on the thing and find balance in this whole thing. Some think that poverty is a virtue. Right? It's not. It's poverty. Some think that wealth is a virtue, and that's not. It's wealth. I mean, they're great. I mean, they're what they are. I won't say they're both great. One of them greater than the other, maybe, if I'm not being simplistic. I do know a guy, though, who read some of these verses and started studying this whole idea and came to the conclusion that he needed to quit his job and move to a homeless camp. And I thought, oh wow, okay, so he's going to be a missionary, But no, he was just going to live with them. It was just because there was a poverty was virtuous. I'm doing something bad by having a job. That's not what this is saying. That's not what this is. This isn't encouraging you to go into poverty. God's blessed you with skills and education experience, whatever, to get a job. You do it. His heart was right, but he didn't do anything for anyone. And it's like, okay, you kind of missed the boat on simplicity here. So that's out of balance. The point of simplicity is not to ban yourself from the things of the world. Okay, that's the easy thing. Let's just work on the outward. Okay, I'm going to throw everything out. I'm going to downsize everything and only ride a bicycle and whatever. Do it, more power to you. But that's not the point of simplicity. It's to get to the point where you genuinely don't crave them. I have a pretty decent bicycle because gone on the bike ride across Iowa, and I planned to keep doing it until Zimbabwe got in my way. It's the same time. Penny, I blame you for that, but point being, I got a nice bicycle. But it's been a few years ago, obviously, because I haven't gone for a long time. And I was in the bike shop the other day. I was buying a pump or something, and I saw the new bikes. And I'm like, oh, and I was like, stop it. What am I? I mean, I barely go 5 miles a year now. I'm trying to get myself on the bike for health. It's like I have no reason to have a new bike now. I could justify it then, but not so much now. This is balance. When we were in our 20s, early 20s, mid 20s, whatever, a guy named George Peterson made a pretty big impact in this area for me. It was the church in Atlantic. Cheryl and I were doing a youth choir. Couple times a year, we'd do a couple musicals, and we'd like travel the state we'd go to nursing homes and some churches. It was a great experience with the kids, and it was just fun to go on the road and tour, right? Well, my vehicle shouldn't be out of town, generally speaking. And then, so I'd start thinking about how am I going to get him there. And George would always had like the brand new minivans. This is like people had minivans, but like people like me couldn't afford them. So every time he'd just put his hand in his pocket, throw the keys to me, and I'd go like, dude, it's like a new minivan. Back then it was cool. I'm like, you want teenagers really in there? I mean, I don't. They're smelly. They're not very careful. They spill things. He goes, let him eat. I don't care. And I said, there's liability issues. That's what first someone wants to borrow my vehicle. I'm like, liability. I don't want to be sued because you did something. Whatever. That's where my mind goes. He didn't care about any of it. He goes, but what he said every time, he says, you know what? It's God's van, not mine. And I've still not attained that level of simplicity that he had. He'd say, it's not my van, it's God's. So this is probably where I struggle. Like I said, I think it through too much. I'm like, well, there are legitimate liability issues. There are things like if they ripped up a seat, I can't afford to put a new seat in there. Those things aren't cheap, it's stuff like that. Anyway, he didn't care. He said, it's not my van, it's for God. It's that simplicity that gave him the perspective of this is, let God use it. This kingdom stuff going on. Your help, by the way, don't tell her I mentioned her. Terry Veverchek was one of those teenagers. we go back a ways. So was Danielle. Yeah, when she was a little one, we slid her in before her time. There was always a drama thing.
So is there a mess that she made in the van?
Probably. Chips, I don't know. Kids, we go an hour and a half away and stuff happens. So that's always impressed me, that the challenge is finding the balance. On one hand, you don't make the simplistic lifestyle legalistic, where it's like everyone has to do this. I'm doing this, now you have to. I'm going to look down on you if you don't dress the way I do, if you don't spend money the way I do, if you don't drive the same kind of car I do, live in the same kind of house, whatever, clothes. If you start looking down at people, then you become legalistic, and the problem is in your inside, because you're worried about somebody else's outside. It's like, so that's the balance thing. If you are perfectly happy with a $4 Walmart shirt, and you're talking to someone wearing a $150 designer shirt, it's not your concern.
You can tell the difference.
What?
You can tell the difference between shirts.
Those of us who wear $150 designer shirts can tell the difference. I do. Anyway, I won't go there. The idea is don't impose on other people. It's okay to treat yourself once in a while. If that's your thing, hey, get a fun shirt. I'm saying that because I get a fun shirt once in a while. You're not violating Scripture unless you have whatever, can't afford it. You're not cheating anybody else out of everything, but also be ready to take that thing off and give to someone if that's what God calls you to do. Yeah?
Would you say, because of some of the examples that you've given, just for clarity, that simplicity, like the balance, the way to help find that would be discernment?
Discernment?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's really easy, like you said, for the dude who's, I'm just going to go sell everything and go be a homeless person. Well, discernment would probably tell him that that's not really what's happening here.
Yeah.
So to find balance in it.
Discern, what is God really wanting? Yeah. You'll notice the only people Jesus said, hey, go sell everything and give to the poor are the people who weren't willing to. Everybody else was like, this is for you. The church was known for its generosity and selling property and giving, but the dude who's like, this is mine. He said, I want you to sell everything, give it to the poor. And they're like, oh, walked away. So discernment, the heart, that's That's where it's at. We read Luke 12 earlier. Here's how you find that happy place. I think between the extremes of giving up everything and living lavishly, seek his kingdom. These things will be provided for you. So that's the discernment. Is this a kingdom thing? Is the verse 31 of Luke 12. But seek his kingdom. These things will be provided for you. If I give away all the food I have with me, God's going to provide something for me. If I take that shirt off my back, man, I loved that shirt. You know what? He's going to provide another shirt.
Or you didn't need it.
Or I didn't need it. I lend some of my truck and they roll the thing 14 times. There's another truck out there. You know, I do have insurance. So we get too uptight on things. In Matthew, Jesus says in that same context, seek first the kingdom. That's number one, first. It's the central part or point in the discipline of simplicity. Seek the kingdom of God and the righteousness of his kingdom first, then everything necessary will come in its proper order. So, yeah. Practicing the spiritual discipline simplicity is moving the heart and ultimately the lifestyle toward the reality where the kingdom of God comes first and God owns everything. So I'm the steward of his stuff. Let's say I have a $150 shirt that I'm wearing. Am I okay giving that to someone else, or am I going to hold on to it? Like we said, it's okay either way to have it or not. $4 Walmart shirt, it's fine. I've got that. But seek first the kingdom. I thought this was an interesting little tidbit too. Simplicity becomes an idol if it comes before the kingdom. I'm just checking off my outward things, right? Possessions become idols if they come before the kingdom. Either one can become an idol. Some theologian, I don't remember who it was, and I didn't give myself a footnote, but some theologian said this: should a person get a suitable job in order to exert a virtuous influence? No. We must first seek God's kingdom. Then should we give away all of our money and feed the poor? No. We must first seek the kingdom. Well, then perhaps we're to go out and preach this truth to the world that people are to seek first God's kingdom? Once again, the answer is a resounding no. We are first to seek the kingdom of God. Then in a certain sense, it is nothing I shall do. Yes, certainly in a certain sense, it is nothing. Become nothing before God. Learn to keep silent. In this silence, it is the beginning, which is the first to seek God's kingdom. I think I fumbled that a little bit, but seek God's kingdom. Discernment. That's what you were saying. Okay, God, this is your day. Where are we going? What are we doing? This is everything. In my bank account, yours. What's going on with it? This truck, it's yours. Are we taking it to a homeless camp today? There might be nails to that FedEx parking lot. Yeah, I got a nail in a not from that, but it's in a position where they can't fix it. They're like, you need a tire. I'm like, yeah. So anyway, that's the point. I'm right now. I've gone to Kentucky on that nail. So far it's.
It'd have to be a sidewall. Yep, sidewall.
Yeah. I'm going to go about 2 or 3 more months, and I got to buy a new tire. So, we taking offerings. Anyway.
How long do you my tools to take it off?
Can I have your shirt too? I get sweaty. How do you know? How to know if you're seeking God's kingdom first? I think this is interesting. Freedom from anxiety is the biggest evidence. What did Jesus say? You seek the kingdom first, everything else will be given to you. Are you anxious? Ever have moments of anxiety, of whatever that looks like? Take a step back and say, okay, God, where am I not seeking? Step back in silence. Seek the kingdom. If you are seeking the kingdom, you're just going to be free from anxiety, and that'll just be the evidence. Secondly, you have a life of joyful unconcern for possessions. That is something that both greedy and stingy people don't have, because you're very concerned. What if someone stinks up my truck? What if someone scratches it? I had it probably 3 weeks and someone scratched it in a parking lot. And then part of me was like, well, I'm glad to get that over with. It's like, because now I'm like, whatever. I mean, I still park way away. Part of that's for health. I just try to walk, those little things, take steps when you can, walk for as far as you can. But part of it is because I don't trust people with my baby. But that I'm willing to give to anyone. Someday. And the third one, you have an inward spirit of trust. Okay, yeah, it does. You gave away all your shirts. You know what? Nobody wants to look at this. God's going to provide a shirt. He's going to make sure. I gave away all my food. I'm going to have. He's going to provide. Yeah, we're good. We're good.
But he does allow us to err on either side.
He does. Yeah, allows us to err. Yeah, what do you mean?
Well, like maybe you get too carried away and give away all your food or something.
Yeah.
As an example, you go overboard a little bit, and then
You could. Like my friend who moved to a homeless camp for no real reason. I don't know if he's still. I don't even know now. I bet he moved out eventually, though.
Yeah.
It's like,
miss the comforts.
yeah. I was like, what was the point? I
Exactly.
just thought it was something I should do. It's like, I mean, good. I mean, if it truly is a kingdom thing, but I don't think there was a kingdom thing. Could have been. Yeah. Anyway. Okay. Freedom from anxiety is characterized by 3 inner attitudes. Y'all tracking with this? Yeah. All right. Number 1, everything we have is a gift from God. So my daily bread, life, the air. Have you ever thanked God just for the air?
Yes.
It's kind of, you just breathe and you're just like, oh, thanks. I mean, yeah, it's kind of, every once in a while that hits me. The sun. It's this understanding that the house I live in is not a result of my labor. It's a blessing from God. Yeah, you worked for it, you did stuff, but it's like still there's so many things that could have happened differently, and you got that. The groceries in our cabinet, they're not mine, they're God's. Cash in my bank account's not mine, it's all God's. It's all that. Once you get there, I don't have to worry about the stuff of life, because yeah. 2, it's God's business, not ours, to care for what we have. He's able to protect what we possess. He's able. We can trust Him. It goes back to trust we talked about earlier. It doesn't mean we never take the keys. You keep the keys in the car, or you don't lock the house, or don't buy insurance. I mean, you do the stuff, but it's just you're not all tied up about it. It's just like, okay, yep, done, check, done. I signed up for insurance when we bought our house 22 years ago. Like I still keep paying it, because I want to make sure. Same thing with the car. You just do it. We do lock our doors. Have a Ring doorbell. The kids got us. And it's really good. So I like it. Somebody came to our house. So yeah, you do that, and then you sleep well. If you're trusting God in this, right? If I only trusted the lock, that kind of give you sleepless nights, wouldn't it? I mean, really, they always say what a lock is to keep honest people honest,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
If you want in, you're getting in. If somebody wants in. Last November, I went to Zimbabwe on a quick trip and stayed in the mission house in Shredzi, it was right before Christmas, and there was a lot of robberies going on. People were roaming. They were killing guard dogs, sneaking into homes, taking money. They had gone to the neighbor's house that's connected. That's where the people who run the orphanage lived there, and went into the house. They have 3 kids, and mom and dad. And she woke up with him. And the guy standing next to her bed and screamed, and they took a bunch of money and ran. They told me this and sent me off to bed that night. And I'm like, okay. I don't have a guard dog. I don't have anybody else in the house. No locks. I mean, the locks didn't matter. They cut through. They have barred windows. They cut through that and got in their house. So that wasn't going to stop anybody. I put up a chair with some water bottles on it. So like if they, because it's like down a hallway where I was sleeping, and they'd have to open that door or break in my window, which they could do. But if they opened the door, at least it would knock over the water bottles, and maybe that would wake me up. And then even then I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm a foreigner in a foreign land. So what am I going to do? Am I going to get in a fight? Like, Do I go to jail now? I mean, like I don't even know what happens, what would happen if I got to beat up somebody in Zimbabwe, Would they just like lock me up or? Point being, I set everything up, and then I thought, and I had brought my drone. That's where I got some of the drone footage. And I thought I was gonna if I could just turn it on in the hallway and scare someone, trying to booby trap the house. And I finally thought, this dude, nothing I can do. Just go to sleep. You trust God. If I'm here doing kingdom work. If he wants me dead, I'm dead. By then, it was the end of the trip, so I didn't have much left. But I went there specifically to bring cash. I got rid of that quickly, that they could finish that building. Anyway, yeah, you trust God. I still managed to sleep, and I did what I could. The rest was up to him. Number 3, everything I own is available to someone else. We find this difficult because we fear the future. That's at least that's what Foster says. We're anxious about tomorrow. What if, But if we genuinely are trusting God to provide, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. You can't outgive God. You can't. Because we know God can replace it. I'm part of a preacher community. Some of you know this story. Part of a preacher community on Facebook, and a few years ago, this guy who started this particular group passed away. He was 61, so he wasn't very old. He had cancer, and he died. He was a pretty cool guy. He had a very long, very fruitful ministry, very well known, highly respected. Never did make a whole lot of money. Always drove worn out cars. Lived in smaller, older, very unimpressive homes. Had a very small little life insurance policy. His wife never worked ever, so she had never done anything. As I said, there was never extra income coming in. So she got this little insurance policy. She was, I think, 59, so she wasn't, she was a pretty young person. That used to sound old now. So. When this happened and everything settled, she wrote a check for $10,000 to Hippo Valley Christian Mission to go to Bible college, to help us scholarships, and there was a 2-year. We just became accredited for a 4-year now, like this week. But it was 2-year. Anyway, it was just to help pay the tuition room and board of Bible college students. That's how I got associated with Hippo Valley. Is my friend Al posted about this, told the story, and they put it in a trust fund. And they said, hey, for $100 a month, you can pay the room, board, and tuition of a college student in Africa. And I read the story, and I saw that, and I thought, man, that's outstanding. I will never have to go to Africa, because why would I go to Africa? I'm quite happy here, not being involved in world missions. But for $100, I can train them, and they can do it. I mean, it's like the best of everything. So I started doing that. Anyway, Al, he got that check, and he took it back to her. He said, we can't accept this $10,000 check from you. He knew her situation. He knew she had no money. He knew she had no future of making additional money. So it's not like, well, I'll just go back to work, and I'll work overtime or whatever. It wasn't that. He knew, and her response to him, trying to give the money back, was, this is a quote, "I know God will provide for me. He always has, and I trust He always will." That impacted me to the point I said, I'm in, and I started giving to that trust fund to help the future of Africa. That led me and Shanna, when we were at the International Conference on Missions that year, to look up Al, okay, let's have a conversation with this guy, and that led. And by then I was started sponsoring a child, I think, too. No, it was after that conversation. But then he was like, well, come to Africa. I'm like, no, that's why I do this, so I don't have to come to Africa. And he goes, no, we got to go in 6 months. You can just join them. And then Shannon and I talked about, okay, this could be a cool thing for the church, to have a mission, like the outside of us. And so, okay, we'll go and we'll take notes and see if it's worthy, not worthy, but it's like something, is it meaningful, impactful, so forth. And so we went. It led to us taking teams there pretty much every year, which led to a new church plant that we did a few years ago, and then them planting another church and numerous revivals, dozens, maybe now hundreds of people accepting Christ, a ripple effect of just what we've done there. I mean, besides what the Hippo Valley organization, mission, has been doing all over the place. And then they asked me, like, hey, will you take charge of the orphanage? I'm like, what? I mean, what? What do I, what? What's that all about? I mean, the ones who live there are really in charge. I'm just like the state side, like, hey, contact person and voice of the orphanage here. I would have never, ever paid attention to Hippo Valley Christian Mission. Like, I think I've heard of it. Danielle knew of it because she went, it was in Grayson, Kentucky. She went to school there. You probably talked about it before. And I'm like, whatever, all these missions are a dime a dozen. Everybody has a mission, Everybody needs our money. I've had all kinds of people say, hey, come on, you start supporting us and all this stuff all through the years. But it never would have stuck out had it not been God orchestrating all those events where all this thing happened. All of us orchestrated because of a hurting woman who gave more than she should have because she thought it's God's. And she was seeking first the kingdom and thought, I'll probably buy it on spend it on green beans. They'll actually train the world, It's like, you need green beans too. And as far as I know, she's still doing just fine.
I say, have you been able to tell her the impact?
I should. I bet I could. I mean, Al could tell me who she is.
Ray Bolt's song.
Ooh, it is. Ooh. That's not a bad idea.
I think that would be awesome.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't like today. I was kind of connecting all these dots, going, look, all these things were happening, and it was like, well, that's kind of a big deal. Who does that? Who doesn't have money and give $10,000 to a mission that you'll never go to? I mean, I'm assuming. John, who knows? Maybe she probably lives there now. No, I don't really know. Al could connect me with her. Now, she had every reason. Point being, she had every reason to be anxious. No marketable skills. I don't know. When you're 59 years old, going for your first job, how does that interview go? I mean, I think if you're 59 and have all kinds of experience, they'll be like, I don't know. Well, maybe today with the younger people not working, it's better. But a gap year. But her income was gone. Her husband was gone. She had very little in the bank. I mean, it wasn't like she was rolling in it or anything. She gave $10,000 to further the kingdom of God, and it's done far, far, far more than she ever imagined. Now I gotta go listen to Ray Boltz and find her. Yeah. Thank you for giving to the Lord. Okay, 10 controlling principles for the outward expression of simplicity. These are not hard, fast laws. They're just ideas to guide us, all right? Number 1, buy things for their usefulness rather than their status. So this is a little bit on the outward. Got to hit the outward too. Buy things for their usefulness rather than their status. A car is utility rather than prestige. Unless you're buying a Tundra, then it's like, no, that's a straight. That was for durability. I planned that to be my last vehicle. A home for livability rather than impression. Clothes for need rather than fashion. Right. Number 2, reject what is anything that is producing an addiction for you. Non-nutritional drinks. Honestly, that's why often most of the times I'll fast like pop because I like soda. I'm not currently fasting that. I should. I'm going to go have a pop tonight. I told you, 1 step forward, maybe 2 back once in a while. Chocolate, television. Also in this thing, I'll probably lose some weight. The one I'm doing is pretty extreme. And so part of my fast is not food. It's like I can't weigh myself until it's over. So, so if I look like I'm sick in a couple weeks, I might be. But I can't tell you. A watch for undisciplined compulsions. I mentioned that in the fasting. When I do fast things on a partial fast, I will always find a loophole and I'll go after it. Like when I had onion rings every single day, it's like that I had to cut that out because that's me. Number 3, develop a habit of giving things away. Give to people who have need. D, accumulate masses of things not needed but are stored, like, I don't know, pots and pans. We had a whole cabinet full of pots and pans. Now we have like one little set that we got at the Sam's Club. Refuse, number 4, to be propagandized, did I say that right? By modern gadgetry. Look for toys that educate and are durable. Hold on to electronics longer. Choose kitchen utensils wisely. Kitchen utensils. Oh man. How many millions have been made off the dumbest utensils? And I've bought, this is probably before we were married, I'm sure. Like, how many ways can you cook a hot dog? 150? Microwave, stove, boil, grill. I mean, you can just all kinds. I had to get that dumb little thing that was, I don't know, whenever that was. You had 2 little electrodes, and you stick the hot dog in there, and you have to turn it on, like, I was cooking it and made a mess. It was just like, how? I probably did it 5 times and thought, this is ridiculous. But I spent the money on it. You got yourself a prize, Cheryl. So just be careful. Number 5, learn to enjoy things without owning them. So, go to the library or wherever, beaches. You don't have to buy a beach house. Go to the beach. Public parks. Rent a boat. We have a big joke. I've been wanting to buy a pontoon boat forever because it's a Jesus tool. It's kingdom work. Think of the things we could do, the tool that would be. And Cheryl says, when you rent one 5 times a summer, then we'll think about it. But I've never, ever in my life even I guess I say that. She still doesn't even say that. But it's like she knows me well enough. It's just one of those bright, shiny things. Someday I'll have a pontoon and we'll have barbecue and small group on the lake. I don't know. Tax write-off. I'm not a boater, so I can't think of what else to do with it. But anyway,
Take lessons on boat operations.
probably have to take some lessons. I would, for sure. I buy most of my books digitally now, which is, I still buy books, but every once in a while I get a hard one just because, whatever. But man, I got thousands of books on that phone over there because it's hooked up, with my logo software and. So I don't. Yeah. Anyway, to learn to enjoy things. I guess I do own those. Dan, you do the monthly audiobook thing, which is kind of cool. You don't really own it. You're paying a rent, but you're a fee.
I just buy this ones that got a special.
Okay. So I really need to do the audiobook thing. I've been saying that for a while. Number 6, develop a deeper appreciation for the creation. So go out walking when you can. Listen to the birds. Enjoy the texture of grass, smell the flowers.
Sorry.
What's that? What?
It's easier on a boat.
Oh, on a boat, yes. That, yes. Confirmation from the Spirit right there. Number 7, look with a healthy skepticism at all buy now, pay later schemes. They tend to be a trap, and they deepen your bondage. Is that still a thing? Maybe it still is. I don't know. Because I haven't even paid attention to that stuff for so long that I don't.
You've been on the Snap-on truck.
Oh, yeah.
Snap-on tools, where they're always trying to get you. We'll just take it now. You can.
Just take it out. Just $20 every week.
Exactly.
$200.
200. Oh, yeah. Number 7 or 8, obey Jesus' instructions about plain, honest speech. We haven't talked much about the speech, but there's a simplicity, element there. Let your yes be yes, your no be no. I struggle with that sometimes too. I'm like wishy-washy. Oh, maybe. I'm thinking. Avoid flattery and half-truths. They tend to they tend to be a half-truth. Be honest, have integrity. I was teaching this class several years ago, and that week, Shanna wanted to go to that conference with me again. Maybe it wouldn't have been the same one. It's probably a year or 2 later. I don't remember when it was. Anyway, she couldn't go. She was at Iowa State at the time, and she had one of those little jobs where you do a college job, and she was like in the cafeteria. You remember that? I forgot she even did this, but it was in my notes from the last time. And she had 3 weeks left. She was out of there never going to do it again. And they wouldn't let her leave for the conference. It was like, seek first the kingdom, Shanna. This is like, come on, just quit. Like that's pretty uncharacteristic of me to say something like that. But I was like, really, honestly, I mean, just end of November, just quit. And she wouldn't do it. She goes, that wouldn't be great character, Dad. I'm like, schooled by my 19-year-old. I was, because she's right. That's true. Yes. I agreed to work. I'm going to work these last 3 5-hour shifts and miss this wonderful week of inspiration. But that's what she agreed to do. So, 9, reject anything that breeds the oppression of others. Wow, yeah. So be mindful how things are produced. Are you adding to waste? Mindful how crops are harvested. This is a Richard Foster thing. Are you adding to exploiting of people? How do we treat people differently if they're different than us in whatever way? So just reject anything that breeds oppression. Every once in a while, I don't know. I don't pay attention like where the sneakers are manufactured, or there's a lot of stuff I just don't know. If I do hear stuff, I like kind of avoid, brands just because like I don't want to be part of that. So
you quit drinking Bud Light then?
I quit drinking Bud Light. I think I can say with complete honesty, I've never in my life had one. That was 9. 10, shun anything that distracts you from seeking first the kingdom. So don't lose focus in the pursuit of legitimate things, like while you're seeking a job or a position or status or family, whatever. If that's distracting you from the kingdom of God, then cut those things off. Shun them, push them away. If they become the center of your life, get rid of them. And that's sometimes you don't know till it's too late. You're like, oh boy, I made a mistake, and then no, that's okay. You repent, and you say, okay, but then get it out, get rid of it. So, bonus material. I just didn't know where to put these in the outline, but I thought they were kind of fun. 3 dangers of clutter. See what you think about these. Distracts the mind. Does clutter distract your mind? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it made sense to me. I thought that's kind of cool. I got to include it in here. My garage is cluttery. It's full of all these little trinket things I'm trying to sell because I bought a long time ago, and I'm selling them, and it's good. But I'm like, it's just clutter. It's just like distracting. It's just, I sit there and think about it. Actually, in 2 days, I'm going to make some money on an old machine thing. Anyway, drains our time. Clutter does. Deceives our hearts. How does clutter deceive our heart? What do you think? I'm not for or against. I'm just like, I just thought it was an interesting list. I don't remember the explanation that went with it.
It can give you the illusion of comfort or power or all kinds of things because you are surrounded by things.
Yeah, I'm successful. Look at all this that I have, and it's a deception. True. Last thing, 3 ways to embrace simplicity. Purge your house.
Light match.
What? With a match? A match would do it quickly. I can't comment on that. For the right price, I could do it for you. Number 2, reduce what you purchase. Boy, that was a magical moment. This is when we first got married, of course, you needed everything, and we moved from 2 dorm rooms to married life. And back then they had like the Sunday newspaper. They probably still do, but back then it was like a big deal. The Sunday paper was really thick, and it had a big section of ads. And man, we'd go through those ads every Sunday and like everything. Oh, we've got to have this strainer. It's like we didn't need the strainer before, or whatever it is. I mean, I don't know. It was just probably God saying, "Hey, I even looked at this clock. I don't even know what time it is."
It's 8:30.
Is it?
Yeah, almost.
Wait. We start at 7, right? Yeah. Holy cow! Okay. Sorry, everyone. Talk about simplicity. Holy moly. Okay, reduce your purchase, and then last one, reprioritize your calendar, and there you go. I had no idea. I didn't even look at it. That's why I bought this $1.95 clock so I could keep on track.
I saw you glance at it a few times. I thought you were.
I know, didn't even look at it. I was looking at He's going, yes, yes. Ding, 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 ding.
Just to go. It's 5 to 8 here.
Oh, dear. My deepest apologies for not being simplistic on the simplicity. No class next week. We're going to take a holiday off.